Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into Genesis chapter 14 today, and wow, there's a lot to unpack here. We've got kings, battles, and this really intriguing idea of trusting in something bigger than yourself, even when the odds seem stacked against you.
It's this really fascinating exploration of human strategy versus divine will.
Right. And it's something that, let's be honest, still resonates even today. Who hasn't felt that tension between trying to control everything yourself and having faith that things will work out somehow?
Totally. And the story throws us right into the action, too, with this rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
The kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, those names still kind of make you go, even today.
Right. It's like those places have a history.
Exactly. So these kings decide to rebel against King Kedorlaomer.
Which, on the surface, seems kind of like a gutsy move.
You'd think so, right? But here's the thing. They're totally outnumbered. It's like they looked around and thought, well, Kedorlaomer's busy with other battles, so maybe, just maybe, we can pull this off.
Yeah, it's like they saw an opportunity and thought, let's strike while the iron's hot, even if they didn't really have the numbers on their side.
Exactly. And that's where this whole idea of human confidence versus divine power really comes into play. Because the source material actually points out that these kings, they were described as evil in earlier chapters.
Oh, interesting. So there's this layer of arrogance there almost.
Right, like a belief in their own power, even if it's a power rooted in, not so great things.
So it's not just about strategy, it's also about their character, their moral compass, or lack thereof.
Exactly. And that's where this whole thing gets really interesting, because it's not just a power struggle between kings. It's like this bigger question of where we place our trust.
Okay, I like that.
Do we rely solely on our own calculations, our own strength, our own smarts? Or do we acknowledge that there might be something bigger at play, a power beyond our understanding?
Whoa, yeah. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Because think about it, Kedorlaomer and his allies, they were outnumbered in this specific battle.
Right, but they still come out on top. It makes you wonder, was it just superior military strategy? Or was there something else going on, something beyond just human strength? It's like that whole 4 against 5 dynamic. You wouldn't bet on the 4, but somehow they win.
Exactly. And while the text doesn't come right out and say, God intervened, the way this victory is described, it definitely hints at the idea that there are forces at play that we might not always see or understand.
It's like this underlying tension between what we think we can control and what might actually be part of a much bigger plan.
Right. It's almost like the author is inviting us to consider, what happens when human ambition and those kinds of carefully calculated plans collide with something much larger, something potentially beyond our comprehension.
It's a bit humbling when you think about it like that,
Totally. And that's where Abraham, our main man, gets pulled into this whole situation.
Yeah, because his nephew, Lot, gets caught in the crossfire, right?
Right. And this is where things get really interesting, because Lot's capture isn't just some random event. It's directly related to where he's chosen to live Sodom.
And the text doesn't shy away from the implications of that choice, does it?
Not at all. It's like this really pointed reminder that our choices, even those that seem small or insignificant, can have unintended consequences. It's not just about being a good person yourself. It's about recognizing that we're all connected and that the choices of those around us, the environment we choose to be in, it all matters.
It makes you think twice about the company you keep.
Absolutely. Because if Lot, who's described as righteous, can get caught up in this mess, what does that say about the influence our surroundings have on us?
It's a bit sobering, honestly.
For sure. And it raises this really big question. How much agency do we really have? Is it all on us, our actions and choices? Or are we also shaped by these forces, visible and invisible, that surround us?
That's deep, man. So what happens next? Does Abraham just sit back and watch this all unfold?
No way. He springs into action. When Abraham hears about Lot being captured, he doesn't hesitate. He immediately gathers up his men, 318 of them to be exact, and sets off on this daring rescue mission.
318, that's a pretty specific number. Any significance there?
Oh, there's always significance with these ancient texts. They love their symbolism and hidden meanings. And the number 318, it's not just a random detail. It actually has a deeper meaning in Hebrew numerology.
Get out of here, really.
Yeah. When you break down the number 318, it hints at this idea of living a life guided by a higher purpose, by something beyond just your own desires and ambitions. And isn't that exactly what Abraham is doing? He's putting everything on the line to rescue his nephew.
That's amazing. It's like those little details add a whole other layer to the story.
They do. It's like a glimpse into the layers of meaning woven throughout these ancient texts. But even without getting too deep into the numerical symbolism, it's clear that Abraham is facing some seriously tough odds. He's going up against a seasoned, conquering force with what seems like a relatively small band of men.
He's the underdog for sure.
Totally. And this is where his faith becomes so crucial. He's not just relying on his own strength or his military strategy. He's putting his trust in something much bigger than himself. He's putting his faith into action. And spoiler alert, it gets put to the test in a pretty remarkable way.
Because he wins, right? He actually pulls it off.
He does. Against all odds, Abraham defeats Kedorlaomer, gets back everything that was stolen, and brings Lot and all the other captives home safe and sound. Talk about an epic underdog victory.
See, it's like the universe rewards that kind of faith, that willingness to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible.
It's true. And this victory, it's not just about winning a battle, it's about challenging our assumptions about what true strength really is. Is it about having the most power, the most resources, the most impressive army? Or is it about something else entirely?
It makes you think, that's for sure.
It does. And you know what? The story doesn't end there. It takes a really fascinating turn after the battle. Abraham has this encounter with a very mysterious figure named Melchizedek.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I love a good mystery.
Oh, you're going to love this. This Melchizedek character, he's shrouded in intrigue. He's not just some random guy who shows up out of nowhere. He's described as the king of righteousness and a priest of God Most High.
Whoa. Okay, so right away, we're dealing with someone who embodies both spiritual and earthly authority, like a powerful combination.
Exactly. And get this, they share bread and wine together, and then Abraham gives Melchizedek a tenth of everything he's recovered. Now, to me, that just screams symbolic. Like there's a deeper meaning here beyond just a simple transaction.
Oh, I bet. There's got to be more to it than that.
You're right on the money. This encounter, even though it's brief, has had a huge impact on religious thought throughout history. The sharing of bread and wine, Abraham's tithe, these things foreshadow rituals and practices that we still see today. It's like peeking behind the curtain of history and catching a glimpse of something ancient and powerful, something that connects us to this long line of belief and tradition.
Wow. It's like a direct link to the past, right in the middle of this already incredible story.
Exactly. It's like we're seeing the seeds of these traditions being planted right here in this encounter between Abraham and Melchizedek. It really makes you think about the ripple effects of these ancient stories, how they still speak to us today.
Totally. And speaking of speaking to us today, this next part of the story is a real head scratcher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So picture this. Abraham's fresh off this victory, right? He's defeated Kedorlaomer, rescued the captives, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And who comes waltzing in but the king of Sodom?
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I know, right? And the king of Sodom, he makes Abraham an offer.
Let me guess.
Go on.
He offers him like a truce or something.
Basically, he says to Abraham, look, you keep all the loot, all the riches you've recovered from this whole ordeal. Just give me back my people.
Wow. Just like people are expendable as long as I get to keep my power and my possessions.
Yes. It's like he's putting a price tag on human life, and it's just another bargaining chip in his mind.
Yeah. It's pretty messed up when you think about it.
Totally. But here's the kicker. Abraham, he says no.
He refuses.
Flat out refuses. Can you imagine being in that situation? You've just won this incredible victory. You're being offered what must have been an insane amount of wealth.
I'd be tempted, that's for sure.
Right. But Abraham, he's operating on a whole other level. He's not motivated by greed or personal gain.
Right.
He actually swears an oath to God that he won't take a single thing from the king of Sodom.
He's like, my reward comes from somewhere else, buddy.
Exactly. It's this incredible testament to his faith and integrity.
It really makes you think about, like, what would it look like for us to live by those same principles today?
Right. In a world that's so focused on material success, on getting ahead, on what's in it for me, Abraham's actions are like a breath of fresh air.
Totally. He's showing us that there's another way, a different path, one that's based on something more meaningful than just accumulating wealth and power.
It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when there's a lot on the line.
Exactly. And trusting that ultimately your reward will come from doing the right thing, from aligning yourself with something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so we've got rebellion, divine intervention, this daring rescue, and then this incredible act of refusal. We're talking ancient kings, epic battles, mysterious priests, moral dilemmas. Where do we even go from here? What stands out to you as the biggest takeaway?
I think for me, it's the challenge this story presents, It makes us really examine our own lives, our own beliefs. Like, where do we place our trust?
It's a big question for sure.
It is. Do we operate like the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, relying solely on our own strength, our own plans, our own understanding of how things should be? Or do we dare to acknowledge that there might be a power greater than ourselves, something beyond our control, and then try to live in accordance with that?
And it's not just about acknowledging it intellectually, is it? It's about letting that belief actually guide your actions, even when it's difficult, even when it means making sacrifices.
Exactly. It's one thing to talk about faith, about trusting in something bigger than yourself, but it's another thing entirely to actually put that faith into action, especially when the stakes are high.
And Abraham, he's the embodiment of that, isn't he? He doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk.
Absolutely. He shows us what it means to live with that kind of radical faith, that unwavering integrity, even when faced with unimaginable temptations.
This deep dive has been incredible.
Right.
It's amazing how a story this old can still feel so relevant to our lives today.
I know, right? It's like these themes of trust, integrity, discerning what truly matters. They're timeless.
They are. And who hasn't struggled with those same questions in their own lives, right?
For sure. And what makes this story even more fascinating is how it connects to these bigger ideas, these themes that have echoed throughout history.
Like that whole encounter with Melchizedek.
Exactly. It's not just some random event. It's like a glimpse into the development of religious thought, a foreshadowing of rituals and practices that would continue to shape beliefs for centuries to come.
It's like we're seeing the roots of something much larger, something that continues to resonate with people even today. It's pretty amazing when you think about it like that. It really is. It's like we're uncovering these ancient threads that connect us to something much bigger than ourselves.
It's true, and it reminds me of this quote by, I think it was Carl Sagan.
Oh, yeah.
He said that books, they're like these time machines. And, even though we're talking about the Bible here,
Right.
the same idea applies.
Totally. It's like this tangible link to the past, to these ideas and experiences that have shaped human thought for millennia.
And it makes you realize that we're not so different from those who came before us, We're still grappling with the same fundamental questions about life, death, purpose, the nature of good and evil. It's all there in these stories.
It's like this ancient wisdom just waiting to be rediscovered and reinterpreted by each new generation.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of these texts. They're not static. They're not set in stone. They're alive, They keep evolving as we bring our own experiences and perspectives to the table.
So it's not just about reading the words. It's about wrestling with them, unpacking them, letting them challenge and transform us.
Exactly. It's about slowing down, taking the time to really ponder these stories, to sit with the questions they raise, even if we don't have all the answers.
Because maybe the answers aren't the point, right? Maybe it's more about the journey, the process of grappling with these big ideas and allowing ourselves to be changed by them.
I think you're onto something there. It's like that old saying, the unexamined life is not worth living. These stories, they invite us to examine our lives, to ask the hard questions, to dig a little deeper and see what we find.
And sometimes what we find might surprise us.
Oh, absolutely. Because the truth is, these ancient texts, they have a way of revealing things about ourselves, about our own hearts and minds that we might never have discovered otherwise.
This whole deep dive has been a perfect example of that. We started with kings and battles, and now we're talking about the nature of faith, the importance of integrity, the power of making choices that align with something bigger than ourselves.
And those choices, they matter. Even if we never achieve some epic victory or become some legendary figure from history.
Right. It's about showing up each day and trying to live in a way that reflects those deeper values, those beliefs that give our lives meaning and purpose.
It's about recognizing that true strength doesn't always come from outward power or material possessions.
It's about that inner strength, the strength of character, the strength of conviction.
Exactly. And that kind of strength that it doesn't fade with time. In fact, it often grows stronger through adversity, through those moments when we're called upon to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's difficult.
So from ancient kings and unexpected victories to mysterious priests and profound moral dilemmas, this deep dive into Genesis reminds us that sometimes the most important battles are the ones we fight within ourselves.
The battles between fear and faith, between selfishness and integrity, between giving in to temptation and holding on to something greater.
And those battles, they're not always easy, but they're always worth fighting.
Because ultimately they shape who we are, they reveal what we're truly made of.
And that's a truth worth remembering no matter what challenges we face in our own lives. Well, folks, there you have it, another deep dive into the books.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.
Keep those questions coming, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.